Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. I'm back in the studio today continuing work on some vintage book journals. So if you're just joining me for the very first time, welcome. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you do, please give me a thumbs up and say hello down in the comments. I will put links down in the description for any other videos that preceded this on the same subject. The playlist, I usually do a playlist, and I have one for vintage book journals, so it has previous projects in it also that may interest you. So I will put a link down below for that playlist as well. And then any materials or things like that I use, I also include those down in the description. So I started 2 videos before. I did one journal in one video and the other journal in the other video. I think this one was first, this one is second. So I wanted to share how, if you're a beginner, just to do a simple pamphlet stitch, one with a book cover that does not have a spine, and this is not finished, but we created a spine so that we could get the signatures put in. And then the other book had a spine, and I decided to keep it even though I am going to cover it up. So I did a similar thing as far as how I put it in. So I did show this one on the previous video, and then I left this one drying under some heavy books. So it's all ready to go and continue working on inside if there's anything more I want to do to it. I like to put these in my Etsy shop as naked journals so that you can do your own thing on the inside. And so that's probably where these are going to end up. But I like to put a decorative spine cover on the spine of my journals because I like to slow stitch. So if you have not seen something like that, this is what I'm referring to. So this is actually where I learned to slow stitch. So it's actually a journal of all stitching. I followed Roxy's Journal of Stitchery to create this journal. I haven't participated in any of the ones after this. This was in a couple years ago, I think. Let's see, 2022. So this was my first attempt at slow stitching. And so I ended up, we created the journal and then slow stitched a spine cover. And so this is kind of something I always have as a reference. And then I've continued to do that with vintage books. And so this is just another little tiny one that I did. And you can incorporate different things. This one is with lace and doily cut up and then just embroidered flowers on it. Whereas this one has lots of patches of different fabrics. And then I also just added a little bit of stitching here and there. So there's really no rule about how you do them. And so just as I let the journals actually kind of lead me with what I'm going to put inside and all of that, it also kind of helps guide me to what I want my spine cover to look like. So I'm going to do one for both of these, and I went ahead and started by just kind of figuring out how wide I want it to be. This one is really wide because my cover, I made this cover. I did use an old book that was just kind of destroyed and actually did this treatment on it. So I didn't have a title or anything I had to worry about. I was able to make this as wide as I wanted. On other books, like this one, there wasn't a title or anything on it. So I was not really also worried about covering anything up. It does have a design here, but no title or writing or anything. So again, I could make this one as large as I wanted. In the case of these, I could do the same thing, but then I would be covering up part of this, which I don't mind covering up a little bit of it, but I don't want to make it huge either. Sometimes, depending on what the title is of the book, I want to keep that showing. This one's not as big a deal because it's pretty grungy and faded anyway. But this one is in really good condition, and so I don't really want to cover up too much of anything. So I want to save the title, which means I only have a small amount here. So I think it's best if you go ahead and make the journal first. That way you'll know how thick your spine is, and you'll be able to kind of make a decision about how wide you want this. So I'm going to lay these two open because I went ahead, and it's kind of time consuming to choose all of your fabrics and decide what you want to do. So I went ahead and I started this. I'm kind of sitting up and down. So if my volume changes, that's why that I kind of need to do that. So I'm going to move this one off first and kind of show you. So I went ahead and I started something here, and I'm going to lay it down sort of centered. And I just kind of grab fabrics and things, just random things. I have baggies of little scrap I'd not thrown away. And that's perfect for this type of application because you don't need very big pieces when it's just a spine cover. So my suggestion is grab a piece of fabric. I actually have 2 layers here, so I can move this aside. I started out with, this was 1 layer of a vintage quilt. So you can see the stitching, but I've taken it apart. So it's really just a thin piece of fabric. That's kind of nice to have a base for yourself. It can be anything, any type of fabric that you have. But I kind of like to have a little base because I want it to be a little thicker. You're not going to use a hoop for this, so it's easier if you have kind of something to hold on to. And you could just take and start adding your patches to this base, but I had found a piece of fabric. Now I've taken a picture of this so that I can take it apart and then go back and, if I've forgotten where things went, put it together. So I did have a piece of fabric. I grabbed it because I liked the colors. There has this kind of burgundy color and there's some red in here. And then I kind of think about what are the colors. As you open the book, then I want it to sort of be cohesive. So I just grabbed lots of little things, including, it doesn't have to just be fabric. I could end up adding buttons and little things, but these are actually, this was a part of a spine of a book. And I have a little drawer where I save all of these kind of all the things that I rip off of a book, because I kind of like to add them in to my design. So here is actually another piece. This is a piece that was ripped off of the spine, and you see that sort of webbing that you use in bookbinding. So I kind of like those laid on there too. So I can stitch those all down. The other thing that I kind of grabbed that was maybe a little different is you can take scraps of fabric and then stamp on them. And so I think I may have shown this a little bit in the previous video. I wasn't happy with how white this was, so I just took some of my distress inks and just added a little to make this, and then spritzed it with water just to give it that little kind of tea-stained, worn look. So again, I took a picture of this. Of course, I'm using my camera now to record, so if I've moved something around and I'm not sure about where it was supposed to go, I think this was going to be somewhere like that, then I've already kind of messed it up. So I just kind of layer and overlap like you're collaging and get your piece to this point. So we'll put that one aside and I'll show you the other one. So this one is, like I said, in great shape. It has a gentleman's name here. So when I put this journal together, even though these colors really don't go with this, I do have some bolder color and some blues and things inside. So it's kind of a combo of some vintagey things and then some of my grungy fun paper techniques. But here has a little more color that goes with the color of the outside a little better. And that's the back of the book. So it made me kind of think that I wanted to do this, not masculine, but keeping this color palette in mind, and then maybe making it look a little more gentlemanly in a way. And I say that loosely here because when you see what I've done, I do have some little florals and things on it too. Not that those aren't gentlemanly. This one, I ended up using just a piece of cotton fabric that's, I believe it's been eco dyed or tea stained or something. It has a little bit of a grungy look, but it's all getting covered up anyway. And I like to tear my edges. I just, I kind of like vintagey and grungy things, but I decided the size of this would be so that I don't mind covering up that end, but that I can still see the title. And it's kind of hard to roll this while this is all. But when you're laying things out, you want to realize that you're seeing, maybe only a portion of it at a time. And so just keep that in mind as you're laying things out. Actually, this fabric up here is one that was a scrap left off from the printed fabrics that I used for the inside of my cover. So again, I took a photo of this one in case something gets moved around before I get it kind of stitched down. So I'm going to show you kind of what my next steps would be then. So this is really just the base. You can add more to this as we go. We're going to do some embroidery, obviously, but I can even add some little shirt buttons would be nice on this one. You can do some beading, little beads on things. I may do some beading on that other one. Sequins, anything. It can be, something a little more tactile than just fabrics. So the next step that I would do for this, and I'm going to sit down for this, is I need to be able to do what we call a hidden stitch. You could go ahead and just do like a cantha stitch or something all the way across. I like to do more of a hidden stitch that's going to make it look a little quilted in a way, but you won't really see the stitches from the top. That way, all of my other stitching that's going to hold everything down is going to be decorative with embroidery thread. So the first thing then is you kind of need to hold this down so that you can get it put together, at least so that you can do the stitching. So there's a couple of things you can do. I start with pins and just try to get a pin so that nothing is going to fall off. And then you can do just a simple basting stitch that we're going to remove before we do the hidden stitch. So there's a lot of stitching on these. It's one of the reasons I like to have multiple journals going at once, because this is something that if you travel like I do, you can take it with you. I put together a little kit that's easy to take, where I'll maybe go through and pick the threads out that I think I'm going to want to use, get a color palette sort of going, and then I put them on a ring, and then that way I don't have too much. This fabric's a little thicker because it's this is like a decorative, almost there's not upholstery backing on it, but it's a thick chenille type fabric. So you just kind of, I used some scrap men's shirting under here, and then some of these are just little quilting fabric pieces. And then these little labels, they're Kathy Holden fabrics. She has some that are very vintage. I don't remember the names of all of them, but they have things like these labels. And you can also, I have printed from digitals, a digital sheet of labels or stamps or anything like that. And you can print those onto fabric and then use them also. So I like to do that. And I will include the video down below on how to print on fabric. But I really like doing that. So I'm just going to, kind of make sure I have everything sort of grabbed here. And then that way I can do a simple basting stitch. And then as I do this, I won't be filming. I don't think so anyway. I might from time to time, like at the beginning or end of another video, if these take me a while, I may just let you have a sneak peek, or I may post it on a post on my channel, because sometimes these can take a while if I'm not, working on them constantly. And that's why, like I said, I like to have multiple journals going at a time. Okay, so that one, I think everything is pinned down so that now I can just baste something so that I don't have to work around these pins. So I will do the same thing with the other one, but I'll just show you if I need to grab a needle and thread. I need to make myself a cute little bag, don't I? Instead of this little Ziploc bag. My sister made this little nest pin cushion for me that I keep some needles in. I can use this one. And this is the ring I'm talking about. So I will just I keep my threads on these little spools in the little plastic boxes, and I'll just grab all the colors I think that I want to work on this project and put them onto a ring. That way I don't have to take the whole thing with me. And then I always need a little pair of scissors. So let me find some just regular thread. Okay, for the basting, I like to use something thicker like upholstery thread because I'm going to be removing it, and it's easier to do that I think if it's a little thicker. So I'm just going to grab some thread. And you don't need to tie a knot or anything in it because you're going to be pulling it out. So you just leave a little tail that doesn't pull out. So I'm just going to start so that I can get rid of these pins. And I'm just going to make sure, leaving a tail, that I just capture in very large stitches all of these pieces of fabric. So it does not have to be pretty, it's just in place of the pins. And I pinned it because you see I'm moving around a lot. So it's going to go on top of this one or below it, let's see. Like that maybe. So as I do this, I can get these out of my way. Okay, so now you can see I have just really big basting stitches that are just holding all those pieces where I want them. And that way I can now do the hidden stitch and then remove this thread. So this is just a way for me to be able to have it be mobile, and I don't have to worry about pins. And I've got it to this point. I can do several of these, and then I have something to keep working on. So I need to do the same thing for the other one, and it's going to go exactly the same way. And then I will do the hidden stitch next. And maybe I should show you a little bit of that just so you can see what I mean for the hidden stitch. And that way, if you're doing a similar thing, after that, it's just embroidery stitches. You can do whatever you want. So for the hidden stitch, I could use the same thing, or I could use just a regular weight thread, and that way the stitches won't show because it's a thinner thread. You could also use just a single of embroidery thread and just use a single strand, but I'm just going to grab some regular all-purpose thread. Okay, so this is just some all-purpose thread. And I could use a smaller needle. Let's see, this one's a little smaller. And so basically for this, you're going to go, these will be much closer together because you want everything to be stitched down nicely. So just start in one corner. And you're going to take the tiniest little stitch here. And then you can go over however far you want to go, 1/2 inch or so. Got this in the way. And then again, just take the tiniest little stitch and then go again 1/2 inch. And again, the tiniest little stitch. So you're going to do this back and forth and back and forth in rows all the way through this piece. And that way you'll be sure to be catching all the little patches that you've added. Now on this dark fabric, this is going to show up a little bit because it's kind of white thread, but that's why when you do just the tiniest little stitch, it's part of the design. So I could be using darker thread, but then again on the light ones it would show. So you just, if you're doing a little teeny tiny stitch, it's just going to end up being like a little quilted feeling because of that fabric base that we're using. So I'm going to go the other direction here. I'm going to finish that one, and then I'm just going to go down about 1/2 inch to make another row. And then same thing. And here I'm going to catch this other little patch. Maybe. Let's see. My fraying fabric is getting captured there. And if you don't get all the edges, like here, so I'm going kind of rows this way. I have this as loose. I'm not going to worry about that because I'll do some decorative stitching and stitch that down. So this is just what we're doing now, is just getting everything attached really well so that we can work on it and take our time and do our decorative stitching. And the nice thing about this, you don't have to be exact, but it's much easier to work with once I have this whole piece quilted. So you can see all of my little stitches here. And then as I go, like I said, I'll be able to just remove this basting stitch. So that's what you do next. So I'm just going to go back and forth all the way down. This is going to take a while. And then I will be able to remove the basting stitch and then start doing all the fun decorative things. So that is my plan for my spine covers. And then we'll glue those down to the book. So that's it. That's how you do it. So I hope that you learned something today. If you have never tried this, it's a lot of fun if you like to sit and stitch. So that's what I'm going to be working on. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.